now adjourn, and I call Mr Parton.
Thank you, Mr Assistant Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to a friend who we lost last month. I speak of Bob, the lawnmower man from Wheeler Crescent in Waniassa, otherwise known as Rade Gutesa, and I note the presence of his grandsons in the chamber. Champion bloke was Bob, absolute gem, and I think that statement goes for just about everyone who knew him. It was an immense pleasure to have known him and to have spent time in his raucous, politically incorrect company. I would dare say that Bob was the most politically incorrect person that I have ever met, but we just forgave him for it. It was impossible for Bob to get through a sentence without dropping the F-bomb. Rade Gutesa was born on the 1st of October 1938 to Steva and Maria in Bihać, Bosnia. His parents then moved to Serbia. They were farmers. They grew fruit, grapes, corn and wheat. He came to Australia as a young man searching for a better life. National Archives records indicate he arrived in Sydney from Italy on the 8th of January 1964. The paperwork lists Bob's employment as locksmith, mechanic and driver, but he was brought to Australia to pick tobacco at Bonegilla. Now, during the mid-60s, he was employed in the kitchen feeding those working on Murray 1 and Murray 2 power stations in the Snowy Mountains. He hassled them for a real job and finally landed a position as a hard rock miner. Now, we believe he then travelled around the Northern Territory in Western Australia. He worked as a barman, he worked as a bulldozer driver. He built a graded road out to a diamond mine around Kununurra, whereby he was flown in by helicopter every day, would dozer the road for kilometres, and then they'd pick him up at the end of the day. And Bob also claims to have gotten drunk with Bob Hawke in a Darwin pub before Mr Hawke became famous. And I don't know whether that's true or not. It probably is true, and I'm here to tell you, it would have been one hell of a night. Early 70s, he worked on the Ord River scheme in Western Australia and at Townsville, servicing machines on the Greenvale Train Tunnels project. He worked with Barclay Brothers as a plant operator and a crane driver doing subdivisions in Tuggeranong and building various bridges. In the 70s, Dartmouth in Victoria worked on a tunnel, drilling and blasting for a power station. He then came back to Canberra in 75, working on the Googong Dam Tunnel. He worked on sewage treatment tunnels in Belconnen, at Loy Yang Power Station in Victoria in the late 70s, Toorong Power Station at Yarraman, driving cranes. He operated one of the 3 cranes that put the flag up on the new Parliament House. He worked on the ski tube in Perisher. He did everything. In the late 80s, he started his own lawnmower business in Narrabundah after injuring his back. He continued to sell, service and repair lawnmowers up until 3 weeks before he died as the owner of Waniassa Mower Service. And when completing official forms of any kind, Bob liked to list his job title not as pensioner or lawnmower mechanic, but ex-Snowy Mountains hard rock miner. The last 18 months have been very tough for old Bob. He lost his wife, daughter Susie and son Craig, all unexpectedly. I attended 2 of those services at the Serbian monastery at Wallaroo, and they were both very, very sombre affairs. And I've got to say, the social isolation of COVID didn't suit the social butterfly known as Rade Gutesa. He didn't much follow the rules. I think I can let the cat out of the bag on that. I don't think the authorities are going to chase him up on that at this stage. He didn't much follow the rules, but people around him did, and it just made life tough for him. Last year, he was diagnosed with cancer, which ironically wasn't the thing that eventually took his life. Heart disease was the defining factor in the end. But God, I'd love to know how many cartons of VB and how many packets of cigarettes. I mean, my word. He will be remembered by so many as the lovable rogue, the life of the party, the cheeky rebel that he was. And I think my favourite thing about Bob was that his home was genuinely yours. He was always keen to invite you into his home, at which point you were compelled to stay for a very long time and you needed help to leave. Rade Gutesa is survived by his granddaughter Maria and a collection of loving grandchildren, and I just wanted to put on the record today that he was a champion bloke.